Ship the Tyne would dearly love to see back. HMS Illustrious is about to be decommissioned, but there's a fight on between British ports who want to have her. The Royal Navy warship was built here on the Tyne in extraordinary circumstances, but is that enough to bring her home? From the Falklands to the Philippines, she's one of the Royal Navy's most famous ships. Now HMS Illustrious is due to be decommissioned, and 3 of Britain's most famous ports are bidding to provide her final resting place. Portsmouth, Hull and Tyneside have entered a race to secure the Navy's last aircraft carrier. Illustrious has always been close to the nation's heart.
Argentina has invaded the Falklands. 2,000 men are reported to have gone ashore this morning and taken full control.
Fighting a war 8,000 miles away meant Britain needed every ship in the fleet. But Illustrious, launched by Princess Margaret a couple of years earlier, wasn't finished. Could she be made ready for sea in half the normal delivery time? That question was answered after a series of crisis meetings here at the Swan Hunter shipyard on the Tyne. Yes, it could be done. But hundreds of shipwrights, welders and other tradesmen would have to work round the clock. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They didn't hesitate.
We undertook to deliver in 3 months, which in the previous programme was about 6 to 7 months.
As soon as I saw them getting to work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, I knew that they were really intent on making a success of this. And it still sends shivers down my back when I think of the wonderful work that went on to achieve this against the odds.
And we decided, I think in our own minds, well, we can do it, and we've done it. It was as simple as that.
But the pace quickened even further when this ship became one of the first casualties of the war.
HMS Sheffield, one of the Navy's most modern destroyers, was hit by an Exocet missile. One missile capable of destroying a ship.
Even as I speak to you today, it still gives me a bit of a shiver that the whole atmosphere changed, everybody was committed, everybody worked together, there was never any issues of demarcation, or we just got on with the job as a fantastic team.
It was really traumatic, and many of us were upset, and we wanted to do whatever we could possibly do to help. And the only way we could at that particular time was to get that ship finished.
So deadlines were set and beaten, and Illustrious was ready for sea.
The acceptance of Illustrious is a milestone for the Royal Navy. It's the most important milestone for the United Kingdom, and it's an extremely important milestone for the North Atlantic Alliance. From the Royal Navy in general, and from all of us in Illustrious in particular, well done and thank you very much indeed.
The scenes as Illustrious sailed down the river were unprecedented.
The emotions of everybody was quite extraordinary. In the day or two before she sailed, we had thousands of people coming to see her. The whole of Tyneside felt for the ship and was identified with it. And when we sailed down the river, I mean, my memory is hundreds of thousands of people lining the banks of the river as we took her down and through the piers and out to sea.
We've been given exclusive access to the personal records of Admiral Sir Jock Slater, who subsequently became First Sea Lord. At his home in Hampshire, he showed us his scrapbooks and home movie of that time, including some lighter moments on the voyage south, such as crossing the equator with its age-old ceremony.
Captain Slater, good sir, we welcome you here. I trust that you'll join us in a jug of beer.
There was also the drama when this sailor, who'd been playing in goal in a flight deck football match, had to be rescued.
I think he thought he was God's gift to the English football team, but he dived for the ball and went straight out over the side, 50 feet down into the sea. And luckily the officer watch had seen this boy going over and turned hard left, so it missed him on the stern.
This was the moment when Illustrious steamed past HMS Invincible to salute the ship she was relieving. The war had been won before Illustrious reached the Falklands, but there was still vital work to do, patrolling the islands and guarding against further possible attack.
We didn't know what the threat was going to be at that stage. Yes, Stanley had been retaken, but for all we knew, there would be a maverick Exocet attack. And so we had to be in a very high state of readiness and prepare for that.
This was just the beginning of a 32-year career, which placed Illustrious in harm's way at virtually every major theatre of conflict since then. But this is where history meets controversy. The Ministry of Defence has been under fire in recent years for allowing the breakup of famous ships, often abroad, as filmed by Inside Out here in Pakistan. Illustrious's sister ships, HMS Ark Royal and Invincible, were also broken up abroad. But now she could be saved. Instead of breaking up Illustrious, the MOD wants bidders to suggest ways of saving the ship for future generations. Now, how's that going to work? Well, the bidders first have to put in an expression of interest. Then there's an inspection phase, and that's going to kick off in about a fortnight's time. And finally, we're going to hear the formal proposals on whether she's to become a hotel, a conference centre or a museum. And we've lined up those contenders.
I'm absolutely certain that everybody in this region will be behind a bid like that, and I think they will give us the support that we need.
A ship like that can be the centerpiece of a much larger maritime attraction, which will bring a lot of economic regeneration to the city and also raise the profile and the name of the city.
The city's actually crying out for conference facilities and a conference centre, and it has been for many years. So actually this will give us the opportunity to use part of the ship for a conference centre. Not only a conference centre for the city, but one which will be not like any other conference centre around Europe.
Each of the contenders will have to find a berth, maybe a dry dock, to locate the ship, money, we understand some tens of millions of pounds, and a link with other maritime developments such as housing or shops. Surprisingly perhaps, Admiral Slater has come close to nailing his colours to Tyneside's mast.
My heart tells me I'd love to see Illustrious back, preserved, showing the people of the northeast the maritime heritage and what these Invincible class ships have achieved. My head questions whether that actually is a practical proposition.
One site already ruled out is the former Swan Hunter shipyard, now owned by North Tyneside Council. It says Illustrious is too big to go here, and in any case, this land is earmarked for industrial use. But the search for other sites is continuing as the race hots up to find Illustrious a lasting home. And that's it for another week. Next week, 10 years on from the T-Bay disaster,